It's Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Kids with what researchers call callous-unemotional traits, what the DSM calls conduct disorder, and what I call psychopathy spectrum disorders, these kids cost us tens of thousands of dollars more than normal children. Depending on the kid, sometimes hundreds of thousands. All of this happens before they even age into the adult criminal justice system. It's really difficult to untangle which financial costs are because of the child's behavior versus systemic financial abuse. But over the next two videos, I'm going to try to do exactly that. In this video, I'll discuss the financial abuse parents like me are subjected to by our children. In the next video, I'll discuss how the system makes it even worse. First, I'm going to build you the shit sundae. In the next video, I'll show you the systemic cherry bomb we heap on top of that shit sundae before we light it on fire. We'll come back to the psychiatrist family from the last video in the next video, but for right now, we're going to talk about the more direct kinds of abuses to which families like ours are subjected. Hi, my name is Lilith Quillen. I'm the founder of the support group Parents of Children with Conduct Disorder. When I tell you these stories about my family, please understand this isn't about poor me or my poor individual situation. This is a lens through which to view other families. If it's happened to me, it's happened to other families too. So how do we go about untangling these two distinct types of financial abuse? Let's start with the most obvious way that these children subject their families to financial abuse: direct theft. My son would steal money out of my jacket pocket. For context, we were living in San Francisco at the time, and I knew carrying a purse made me a target. It's really easy to steal someone's purse. So for personal safety, I kept everything in my pockets. It never even occurred to me that I needed to protect my money from being stolen by my own child. When he was older, he would take our electronics and sell them. We'd either have to replace them or just accept the loss. Other parents in my group, their kids steal credit cards from them, from grandparents, from aunts and uncles, max them out. Some of these kids steal items and objects from the house to sell for money. No family member is safe, just constantly stealing and selling whatever they can get their hands on. Then there's property destruction. Property destruction is such a huge part of child-to-parent violence that there's literally a blog from the UK called Holes in the Walls. In 2016, my family and I had a house fire. I often joke that I'm the only person in my support group who experienced a house fire whose child didn't set the fire. It was an accident. Our downstairs neighbors left the stove on and went to the movies, and hilarity ensued. When the firefighters were running in there with axes, cutting open walls to get at the fire, because the fire was in the walls, my husband and I were standing across the street watching our house burn. I turned to my husband and said, "Well, at least our landlord won't know our son made those holes in the walls. We can just blame everything on the firefighters." We were actually relieved that our house was burning because now we didn't have to explain the property damage our child had caused. More than one parent in my support group can't rent a place anymore. Can't find anyone who's willing to rent to them. Many families experience homelessness not because they can't pay the rent, but because they have such a poor track record of their child destroying rental properties that landlords know their property will just get destroyed. Nobody will rent to these parents anymore. Let that sink in for a moment. These parents are subjected to homelessness because no one will rent to them because their children are so destructive. Bet you didn't even know that was a thing. As a general rule, kids with callous-unemotional traits have so much entitlement. When my son was younger, if we told him we had a surprise for him and it was something from the grocery store, a treat, a snack he liked, he would throw a tantrum because he thought surprise meant something expensive, a toy or electronics or something. We had to start saying food surprise just so he wouldn't flip out because it wasn't expensive or exciting enough. Once, when my son was 10, I happened to mention just in passing that at one point before I met my husband, I had dated a lawyer. For 72 hours, my son threw a tantrum about how I should have married the lawyer because then he could have been rich. He threw the tantrum, stopped throwing it long enough to go to school, then came back from school and continued throwing the tantrum for 3 days straight. I am not exaggerating. I kept trying to explain to my son that the reason I didn't marry the lawyer was because I didn't love him. I finally got my son to stop throwing a tantrum by asking, "Do you love your dad?" He said, "Yes." I said, "Okay then. If I had married that lawyer, your dad wouldn't be your dad." He was like, "Oh, okay," and stopped. He stopped on a dime. 72 hours. This child felt so entitled to be rich that he threw a 72-hour tantrum about how he could have just been rich if I had made different life choices. It wasn't until I pointed out how he felt about his dad that it mattered. Then there was his 16th birthday. My son just assumed that we would be buying him a brand new Dodge Charger. A brand new one. My husband and I laughed and laughed about that. Our son threw a ginormous fit. I haven't even talked about food yet. A lot of these kids will destroy food. Just because. They'll wait until the family goes shopping, has their 2 weeks worth of food to last through the next paycheck, and then destroy all of it. They're not even eating the food. They're just destroying it. So the family has no food. If you want me to do an entire video on the weird stuff parents in my group see with their kids around food, drop a comment below. Then there are the scams kids like ours run on other people. My son was friends with this kid at his school. He told the kid there were other people who wanted to kick his ass, but if he paid my son protection money, my son would make sure he didn't get hurt. There weren't any other kids. Nobody wanted to kick this kid's ass. My son completely made it up so that this kid would pay him money. The boy's mother found out about this and she called me. She said she didn't want to press charges. She just wanted her money back. So I cut her a check. I kept begging her, please press charges. He's never going to learn unless you press charges. She kept saying, oh, he's just a kid. I don't want to ruin his life. Here's what I wish I'd known. I was never going to have good relationships with these people anyway. My son's behavior had already guaranteed that. So cutting checks, hoping to preserve relationships that were already doomed, it's pointless. If I had to do it all over again, I would tell that woman to press charges if she wanted her money back. I'm not the only parent who's cut checks to people their child has robbed. Parents in my group cut checks all the time, hoping it'll help maintain relationships. It doesn't. It can't. It's just like lighting money on fire. Here's why I was pushing so hard for that mom to press charges. By this point, my son had already been diagnosed with conduct disorder. I started looking for support groups. There weren't any. So I had contacted every expert I could find. Everyone who'd done research using words like conduct disorder, antisocial personality disorder, sociopathy. If you used any of those words in your research, I picked up the phone and called you. I didn't know then that the word I really wanted was psychopathy. I didn't know that until I read The Psychopath Whisperer by Dr. Kent Keel. I spent 2 years researching the wrong fucking thing before I realized what I really needed to be researching was psychopathy. This is normal, par for the course with parents like me. Some of us don't even know until a decade later what we should have been looking for. This is another reason we don't got this. Everybody's lying to us. They're not telling us what we should be looking at. They're hoping if they just whitewash the terminology enough, these kids will sort themselves out. Well, they're not gonna. This is another huge problem. The diagnostic paradigm for this uses different language depending on which stage of life someone's in. Psychopathy isn't even in the DSM. Parents don't know what we're looking for because no one will flat out tell us that the word we want is psychopathy. That's what we need to be researching. I'll go into how the terminology fucks everything up for parents in a later video. I didn't know at the time what the word I wanted was psychopathy, so I was looking up the wrong thing. Every single person I talked to, when I asked where support groups for parents were, they said, oh, that's a really good question. You know what? That's always the first question parents ask me. So if you ever find any, let me know. That's why I started Parents of Children with Conduct Disorder. Because nobody wanted to put their name on a group like that. Nobody wanted to publicly say that they were the parent of a kid like that. So I just decided, fuck it, I'll do it. Every one of those experts told me the same thing. The only thing you can do at this age, because he's a teenager, is hope he gets caught up in the criminal justice system and hope they sort it out. Sometimes the juvenile justice system just makes them better. Sometimes it makes them worse. We don't know why. That's the only thing you can do. Hope the juvenile justice system sorts them out. Yes, that is what I was really told by every single expert I contacted. There aren't actually any better options than the juvenile justice system. All of the supposed treatment strategies we have right now are absolute shit. I know the experts say these strategies work, but parents from my group say differently. They don't work. Right now, the most effective thing we have is the juvenile justice system, and that's not good because it's not even effective most of the time. I'll do a video later on why the juvenile justice system doesn't work most of the time. Here's something people don't understand about why the juvenile justice system works when it does. The only person with the power to compel treatment is a judge. Parents can't make them. In most states, teenagers have the right to refuse treatment, which they most likely will because they don't think there's anything wrong with them and they don't want to change. Remember, the only person with the power to compel treatment is a judge. Parents aren't the only people who pay the financial costs for the havoc our children wreak. My son and his group of friends went on a multi-county crime spree. They robbed over half a dozen people at gunpoint. The reason they got caught was because they happened to go into a county that actually prosecutes juveniles. Most of the counties around here don't prosecute juveniles at all. But my son and his friends were dumb enough to cross into a county that did. My son's co-defendant, not my son, targeted a little old lady. When he grabbed her purse, she fell down and got injured. My son never touched that lady. That was his code. He would never hurt a little old lady. But because he was in the car, he faced criminal charges and had to pay restitution. We paid $200 in restitution for a crime our son didn't even commit. Don't get me wrong, he robbed other people at gunpoint. He just didn't rob that specific little old lady. The county where he committed multiple armed robberies refused to charge juveniles. $200. That's probably not enough for that lady's emergency room copay. It's certainly not enough to compensate her for her injuries. It's not enough for all the physical therapy she's going to need. It's not enough for all the emotional therapy she needed. I'll talk more about restitution in the next video. Understand, this isn't just a cost to our families. This is a cost to society. These children cost us tens of thousands of dollars more than normal children. On average, in some cases, hundreds of thousands. And again, that's before they even get to the adult criminal justice system. Here's what people don't understand. The money parents like me spend doesn't even do anything. We're not paying for a cure. We're not donating to the SPCA for kittens and puppies. We're not buying something that helps or heals or makes anything better. We're just replacing things that have been destroyed, repairing what shouldn't have been broken in the first place. It's experientially not much different than taking paper money and lighting it on fire. It feels terrible. It drains us. It's horrible to use resources this way. Do you have 10 grand just laying around to light on fire? We don't either. We don't have the resources to help our children. We're too busy lighting our resources on fire every time our kids decide to do something shitty. We don't got this. We can't got this. We don't got this. These are just some of the ways kids with what researchers call callous-unemotional traits, what the DSM calls conduct disorder, and what I call psychopathy spectrum disorders. These are just some of the way these kids cost us money directly. In the next video, I'll go over how the system bankrupts families like me on top of all of this. All of this is why we're organizing a strategy session on screening kids during the early intervention period, before any of this starts. If you want to help make that happen, email Lisa at disordersofaggression.org. That's Lisa at disorders, DISORDERS, of aggression, AGGRESSION.org. It's also in my bio. We don't got this. We can't got this. We don't got this. But you can actually do something about this.